So I'm going to do a little bit of a shout out video here. This is to both Dana Garrett's video on Spectrum of Atheism, and it's also, I'm partly going to mention Pat Condell's video on the God of Life, something like this. I think what I want to say to Dana, Dana shot up this video and he was responding to Jericho movie on soft atheism and some of these distinctions that are going down about, do you need proof that there is or is not a God? Do you need proof to be a theist? Do you need proof to be an atheist? And some of the distinctions that Dana was drawing upon were making this distinction between a belief, or I guess in some way a belief that one has about something, or a claim to know that something is the case. And I suggested that for my own perspective, the question is, it's about feeling of the divine. And he asked, could I clarify on that? And so I wanted sort of clarify something about that, and I thought that I would. I think that from my own perspective, the questions are, first, what ought we mean by the divine? What ought we mean by that? And then and I think part of what we want to mean, I would want to say anyway, is that it's partly a feeling. It's not just knowing. I mean, I don't think that if anyone wants to claim to know something about, I don't know, some creator, some guy in the sky, some person who brings about virgin births, or all of this kind of stuff, that I don't, it's hard for me to make sense of that. That to me is ridiculous. I think, though, we can say, what are the genuine religious experiences? I think there are genuine religious experiences, spiritual experiences. They're ways of experiencing the divine. And the experience of the divine isn't by having a set of beliefs about the divine, or having a set of criteria that need to be uh, satisfied in order to claim that this is, a warranted belief or a justified truth claim, something like this. I would want to say that no, it it has to do with larger senses of order and mystery. And here's maybe where I'll bring up my Pat video, my comment on Pat Condell. Yeah, I was happy to see that he gave some comments on I guess the clergy and the horrors that the clergy do, and I think that is right to point out, and we should be very skeptical of the, I guess, organized religion in some sense, just wholesale. But I don't want to say that every person who has, any involvement in a church is somehow doing evil. In fact, there's lots of people, sort of your everyday person, who they don't really buy the dogma, but they're involved in social services, and they're involved in various social groups and organizations that serve charities, and they actually do lots of social good. And so I think that's one thing that I would say. And I think that they're driven, some of them, not by a belief in a God or a knowledge about it, but because it feels good to help other people. And it feels good to help other people because people partly recognize this notion of, this is all the divine mystery that we're participating in. Now, further to Pat Condell's video, which I thought was pretty funny, I think he's a smart guy. It's a great video. I would recommend people see it. But he suggests that the sun is this apt metaphor for us. That's a better metaphor than all the religious dogma stuff. Now, at first pass, I completely agree. There's much to be said about worshiping the sun. The sun is what gives us warmth, and the sun allows us to see, and the sun is what feeds all the plants, and the plants feed all the animals, and we feed off of the plants, and some people feed off of the animals, and somehow the sun seems to be the source of all life here. But that itself is a myth that it may have sort of outgrown, that we may have outgrown, or that may have a, sort of an expiration date that's now past due. We live in a world that's global, and that sense of global culture is now, it's beckoning for an alien that is more than another culture. We're starting to have the dawn of galactic consciousness. And so the metaphor of the sun, and it's a beautiful metaphor. I mean, if you want to have a metaphor for something to give thanks to and to be grateful for, yeah, the sun's a great thing to focus upon, and to realize your dependence upon the sun, to realize that you're not a self-cause. I think the sun is a wonderful metaphor. But the problem with the sun is that it's both, well, I'm sorry, the problem with the sun is that it's visible. And that makes it sort of an obstacle to maybe a more robust sense of the feeling of connectedness between all things. That is, when I look at the sun, it's over there and I'm over here, and I can feel the radiant heat from it. But it could be that the kinds of metaphors that we need for the divine, and I'm talking about metaphors. I don't think there is a being, there is a guy in the sky. I think what we need are metaphors for the feeling of the divine. And I would have preferred Pat Condell. I won't get all the viewers that Pat will. I'm not as good of a speaker as Pat, but the metaphor that he should have chosen is gravity. Gravity is a much better metaphor for what people of the New Age should perhaps worship. Gravity is much more mysterious. It affects everything that has mass, and so it's real, but it doesn't have an impact or a sway upon things that are immaterial. So it's really interesting in some of its dynamics. Gravity is what regulates all the heavenly bodies. It's what we can't see, but is part of the force of attraction between everything that has mass in the universe. It perhaps is a much better metaphor than Pat Condell's sun god. But to respond to Dana's, I think, larger question about what is it that is about the atheism-theism debate that could be useful in terms of what is it about the theist-atheist debate that if we could change the discussion or move the discussion would be helpful. I would just say that we should be haggling about what ought we mean by the divine. I think we should all grant, from my perspective, we ought to grant that life itself is divine. Life itself is a divine mystery that's the equivalent of something like gravity. And it isn't, as Pat Condell in his video, he says at one point, like he's given some sort of pantheism, like the sun has a kind of consciousness because it has gases there that are going on. No. If anything, if the sun has a consciousness, it took the sun to grow all of this materiality by which we could be the consciousness of the sun. I mean, if the sun is in any way, if the sun in any way has a consciousness, we are the consciousness of the sun. That is, we're something the sun is doing. It wouldn't have a consciousness in itself. I mean, some of it was very odd, the discussion he was giving. I would be more inclined, to say that there is a kind of ongoing mystery that's the equivalent of gravity, and it can be felt. And there's no dogma, there's no judgment, there's no guy in the sky, there's no virgin births, there's no life after death, there is no ultimate recompense. But there is the issue of self-relation, because we can speak, and because we have been otherized through language and through discourse. We're now open to others, we're open to history, we're open to time in a way that the rest of the natural world just doesn't seem to be. And I think that itself is part of the spiritual connection. To be able to feel. I don't know if other animals can feel the unity among all of the diverse things in the world, but I think humans can. We can feel the relations between things and not just react to particular things in the environment. I'm not sure how much other animals can do that. And that would be part of what I would want to mean by the beginning of a discussion of what ought we mean by God, and how ought our discussion of God be related to feelings rather than to belief or to knowledge. Okay, thanks.